All right, artificial intelligence. We talked a little bit about it last class. Last class was more of an introduction to this concept of artificial intelligence. And I wanted to mention, last class I introduced artificial intelligence as a machine that can, think, make decisions, make choices. I wanted to, elaborate a little bit further on that. I introduced it as a machine because this is a very simple way of understanding it, a very easy way. We all like machines, we all know machines. And to, 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 to think about a machine that can, think on its own, reason on its own, it's a very easy way to understand artificial intelligence. However, a more accurate definition of artificial intelligence is a word called a software. This might be a word that some of you have never come across. A software is, in short, a digital program or digital set of instructions on a computer. You could think of it as a digital machine kind of on your computer, and it does a certain task. Now, imagine if, like, for example, Google Chrome, the browser, or Safari if you're using a Mac, or any other browser, all of these are in some ways softwares. So imagine if your browser could think on its own, make decisions on its own, play chess with you or chat with you. That's basically what an AI does. It's a software. So compared to defining AI as a machine, it would more better be defined as a software. Of course, these are just, definitions. I just wanted to clarify it from last time. Anyways, so yeah, I just covered. To elaborate a little bit further though, you could kind of think of a software as a digital recipe book. It contains different programs or instructions for a computer to execute. Computers don't understand the human, our English. They don't understand English. They don't understand any human language. So these programs allow us to communicate with computers. It's pretty cool. Like imagine talking to a computer and the computer actually being able to respond. That's what softwares enable. Do you have any questions? Okay. So yes, you could see software as a digital recipe book. Okay. And you could see AI as a recipe book that can think. It's a kind of funny way to see this. But yeah, AI is kind of that recipe book that can think on its own, come to decisions on its own. And that's because AI is a software. Okay, that's a little bit about AI. Before we move on to the next topic, and we're already on session two, so we're going to be going a little bit more deeper into AI. Some of you guys might feel like y'all are not able to keep up. That's completely all right. Just stay focused, and even if you don't understand it directly, you're going to be able to understand it just by focusing and listening. For that, do we have any questions? If you do, feel free to unmute or raise your hand. Okay, I'll take that as a no. We're going to be moving ahead. We're going to talk a little bit about artificial neural networks. Yeah, I know this is it's a pretty wordy term. Let's break it down. So artificial, this word means human made. But here's the key part, neural network. Many of you guys might have never heard of it. If you are a little older, maybe in sixth or seventh grade, or older, eighth grade, ninth grade, y'all might have heard about neurons in your biology class. So we all have brains over here, and what allows us to think, make decisions are neurons. In short, these are cells or tiny parts of our brain that allow us to think. You could study a little bit more about it, read about it if you haven't encountered it before, the concept to get familiar with it as homework if you want to. This is not my homework, but if you want to do it on your own, that's cool. When you have like a bunch of these, I'm talking hundreds, if not thousands, tens of thousands, I mean hundreds of thousands, millions of these, or even more clustered together, they're called neural networks. So as you can see here, this is kind of how our brain looks inside with different neurons connected to each other, firing. As you can see here, we're exiting to a human brain. That's a neural network. So remember, there's only like a few words you need to know from this slide, and we have a pretty short slideshow today. It's neurons and neural networks. Now, this is the human biology we're talking about. You guys might be wondering what we mean. How does this connected to machines or softwares that can think on their own, reason on their own? So that's where we move on to the next slide. AI, we see AI over here. And and the way AI thinks, the way AI is able to think, make decisions, is through an artificial neural network. It's basically modeled off our brain, the neurons connected to each other inside our brain, and through computers and processors, a bunch of electronic technologies, cool parts that are really, really small. That when supplied with electricity, they're able to fire they're able to activate and allow computers or machines to think on their own. And that's kind of how you have AI. That's the birth of AI. So, and just a fun fact, even in our brain, it's kind of electricity that actually allows us to do everything we do. So, so so these are intentional similarities because AI as we know it was modeled off our brain. So yeah, these are things we need to know. And there are four types of neural networks. I think, yeah, so some of these failed to load properly. We won't spend too much time here. I do want to just introduce these topics to you, at least the words, the terms. Just, recapping though, do we have any questions? And yeah, if you do, feel free to unmute and, interrupt me if you want to. Or raise your hand. I'll be looking out. And just to recap, know the terms neurons, neural network, and AI. And of course, know that AI is built off of artificial neural networks. So basically, neurons that are artificial, that are, computer parts, technologies. Okay. So there are four types of neural networks. We're not going to spend too much time here. Just going to, briefly go over it. If you don't understand what it is, that's perfectly fine. We're going to be sending out a recording. Feel free to go back in the recording and look at this part. You could probably do a Google search, watch a few YouTube videos. I think there needs to be more, YouTube videos talking about these in, simpler terms, because these are pretty simple when you go into it. So I'd highly recommend looking into it. We have our first neural network, a feed-forward neural network. This is pretty simple. You enter some data. That's another word from last time. You enter some data as the input on this side, and it goes through a bunch of different, processes, layers, and it comes out on the other side. Now, if you're interested, you can do the research. I'm not going to talk about this too much, but basically, we all see, like, we see outside that the grass is green, and then the moment we see it, our eyes kind of capture it and take it into our brain. Many of you guys might have not heard of this, so just hear me out. And then based on that, we come to the decision that the grass is green. And AI operates this exact same way. If you show an AI camera that the grass is green, it's gonna take in like the green color. It's gonna sense, the green color from the grass. It's gonna take it through all these different, meshes, layers, nets. These are kind of like nets, and come to the decision that the grass is indeed green. That seems pretty easy for us. We all know the grass is green, sky is blue, but that's because we've already made that decision. We've already come to understand how, the fact that the grass is green. So that's feed forward. It's the key thing to note about feed forward is it's one directional. Moving on to recurrent, it's very similar to feed forward. You have the input on this side, everything we see around us, everything we smell as well. That's all data. We see the input on this side, and then the output is on this side, just like the feed forward. The key thing here is output also goes back into this middle layer, which is called the hidden layer. And yeah, you can do research about it, but the key difference between these two is that this is one directional. It's like a one-way, one-way traffic. This one is like a U-turn. the data takes a U-turn back into the network. So I think these topics are really interesting, especially if you're tech oriented, because these can be really, really cool. So just moving forward, we have these are two of the most basic neural networks. Then you have two others. And this is where things start to get a little bit more fun because it isn't just like, input, whatever happens in between, output. So we have generative adversarial neural network. Do you have any questions? Okay, Aaron, yeah, I saw you unmuting. Okay, Aiden, I see you've raised your hand as well. That's great. Uh, Aiden, I think you might want to check your mic because I can't hear you. Or if you want, type your question in the chat.
Oh
Yeah,
wait.
Aiden.
Um,
I
it's like on an iPhone, it's like Siri, like kind of like a neutral network.
Yeah, it is actually. It definitely is. It has both of these components. Siri is, yeah, exactly. It uses neural networks, but it also uses a couple of these. It uses, I believe, a generative, whatever I'm gonna about to tell you. So yeah, that's a great point. Siri does use a neural network. That's how it's able to respond to you. Yeah. So, and Aaron, I saw you, I believe, had a question. So if you want, you can unmute or type it in the chat if your mic is not working. Let me know if you have a question. And if I see you unmuting and speaking, I'll, let you ask your question. So just going back, we have two more neural networks. We have a generative adversarial neural network, a very cool name. You could write this down if you want, or just take a screenshot. And I'm going to go over a little bit of the technicality. Just bear with me for like 20 seconds. So you have two parts. You have a generator and you have a discriminator, what's called a discriminator. The generator, it produces data. It just like, it creates it, just like how we draw things on a piece of paper. This generator tries to draw it. So let's say the generator wants to draw a house. It draws a house on a piece of paper, a blueprint. And then the discriminator, it tries to see how different the house that the generator has drawn is from a real house. So, and it, so if the discriminator is able to point out that the two houses are not the same, then the discriminator here wins and it goes back to the generator. That's kind of how this works. It's called a discriminator loss, generator loss. And it goes back to the generator. And the generator keeps on like producing better and better versions. Think of it as you drawing better and better drawings of a house or of anything. The more you keep trying, the more better, the more your drawing, yeah, gets better, it improves, it looks more real. And eventually, like after a lot of time or a lot of energy, your drawing looks really, really similar to a house. You have a few, if you've been to museums or if you've been on the web, you would have saw a few paintings that look really similar to an actual house or an actual object. So that's kind of what the generator does. And what happens is this discriminator eventually gets fooled. What it means is it's eventually not able to tell the difference between what the generator created and what the actual image is. It's not able to tell the difference between the painted house or the drawn house and the real house. So, yeah, you can get some water, Aiden. So that's kind of how it works, and it's the generative adversarial neural network. You can call it GAN. Let me just put in the chat. It's a very simple way to remember it. GAN, JAN, whatever you'd like to call it. This is what's responsible for all the AI image generation, all the images that AI creates that you'll start to see a lot more as you get older. All of that is created primarily by this neural network over here. And then finally, we have convolutional neural networks. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time here. Essentially, let's say you take a picture of a zebra. This is a good example, zebra. And then it goes through the neural network. You can, take a look at it on your own time. And it basically, the neural network is able to identify based on, the color of the zebra, the way the zebra's body looks, it's able to identify that it's a zebra. Just like how, when you see a dog, you're able to identify a dog. In many cases, if you guys know a lot about dogs, you can even identify the specific breed of the dog. If you know a lot about an NBA player just by seeing them, you're able to identify the NBA player. So in the exact same way, basically, this a convolutional neural network is able to identify anything around it. And it's this convolutional neural network that really gives AI its eyes. It really allows an AI to see outside. It really allows an AI to see everything that's going on. So that's a convolutional neural network. Gonna take a 1 minute break. Ask me any questions. This is probably going to be one of the most tech, heavy parts of this class. We are talking about AI. It's an emerging technology. So of course we have to talk a little bit about technology. But I'm just going to tell you all, this is probably one of the most advanced topics we're going to be covering here. Maybe we might go into further advanced topics if I get that kind of feedback. But if not, this is probably going to be one of the more advanced topics, and the rest and everything else we're covering is going to be a lot more fun. And this is going to be fun. This is going to be pretty fun as well. We're going to make it fun. So yeah, I see someone has been writing on the screen for a while. You have AI, okay, that's cool. Um, nice. Okay. Uh, I'm gonna probably see if I can disable the right, the writing ability. I don't know if I can. Um, Let me just see because it's kind of distracting. Okay, yeah, yeah. Nothing against drawing. If y'all want to draw, that's cool. Maybe after during the breaks or after class, I can let y'all just draw on my screen if y'all like it. But the point is, we're talking about AI here, and this is gonna be a really fun topic. So I really want y'all to pay attention to this. If y'all, kind of got a little dizzy after talking about the previous neural networks, which honestly you shouldn't, because those are pretty fun. Uh, but this is gonna really be exciting for y'all. And we have three types of artificial intelligences here, or artificial intelligence. Yeah. So we have artificial narrow intelligence. It's ANI. We have artificial general intelligence, which is AGI, and we have artificial superintelligence, ASI. Okay, these are very, big terms. Some of y'all might find it, kind of difficult to understand. But here's where the fun part, here's where things get fun. When we're talking about artificial narrow intelligence, this is intelligence that can do a very limited number of things, a very small number of things, but can do it really, really well. ChatGPT, which we went over last time, is a great example of artificial narrow intelligence because ChatGPT, it's really just good at chatting. It can do a lot of chatting. And because it's good at chatting, it can also write things for you. Now it can even solve math problems for you. It can generate stories for you, storylines. In fact, this is a fun activity. For many of y'all who like stories, you can go on ChatGPT and just create your own story using ChatGPT. It's really, really easy. And if you want to sell, this is also an entrepreneurship class. So if you want to make a story and then perhaps even sell a comic book or story online, use ChatGPT to help you out because ChatGPT can be really helpful for that. ChatGPT can also create images. So last class, I showed y'all a lot of different images generated by AI ChatGPT. Y'all can just do it on your own as well. You should be able to. But the point is, narrow intelligence is really, really good at one task. ChatGPT is good at chatting. I showed you another tool, v0.dev. It's really, really good at just programming. It can code entire apps for you, websites for you in like 5 minutes. It's crazy good. And that's another example of artificial narrow intelligence. So that's ANI. Now here's where things start to get fun. We have AGI, artificial general intelligence. So if you ask ChatGPT to play chess with you or play basketball with you, it really won't be able to. It could give y'all like strategies to do better at basketball, but it really cannot play basketball. Even if it had arms to play, legs to play, it just wouldn't be able to play basketball properly because honestly, because it wasn't made for basketball. There's many things in basketball that ChatGPT would definitely have trouble doing. It would have trouble, aiming at the hoop, staying focused while dribbling. It would have trouble perhaps even passing, because we're all moving really fast on the court. Likewise in soccer, it's the same thing. So that's where general intelligence comes in. Things like teamwork, which are really important in sports, these are like teamwork is kind of an emotion. Because you have to like understand humans. You have to understand the feeling of working in a team. Okay, this is going a little deep, but this is where general intelligence comes in. This is AI that's able to basically do anything we humans can do. There's a lot we humans can do way better than AI, which AI cannot even think of doing at this point. But where general intelligence comes in, things start to get a little blurry. We this is where in all the movies you start to see cyborgs appearing. If you watch Star Wars, C-3PO is an example of what you could probably perhaps call an artificial general intelligence. So it understands, human feelings, emotions, intelligence, and at least to some extent, it's able to operate illogically. You know, it's able to see beyond just the program. It's not just a robot anymore. It's a little bit more than a robot, cyborg perhaps. And then, finally, the probably one of the coolest things in the entirety of AI is the potential for super intelligence. Nobody knows what this looks like. Nobody knows what super intelligence can do because what super intelligence is it's an AI system that is far, far more powerful than human intelligence. It performs at a higher capacity than human intelligence. And I want you all to imagine for a second if y'all could be the one who invent artificial superintelligence. How would y'all feel about inventing, a computer or machine or program, whatever you want to call it, a software that can do basically almost everything you do. It can do it better than you. That's kind of what superintelligence is. Now, even in superintelligence, there are things that people perhaps think that cannot be done by software simply because it's not a human. We're not going to be going into that. But in short, we have artificial narrow intelligence, all your ChatGPT Siri, Siri is good at listening. Then you have artificial general intelligence, which are your, movie cyborgs. And I want to also add that aside from, general intelligence, super intelligence have not been invented yet. People are, trying and they've been trying for a while and they're still trying and trying to actually invent these. So these are completely, imagined. It's kind of like, to some extent, it's a little bit like science fiction at this point. So yeah, that's artificial general intelligence. It's kind of like your human robots. I think of super intelligence. I don't even know how to describe this. It just, really powerful. You can imagine it as a machine that controls a large part of the world. So that's super intelligence. Pretty cool. Okay.